See, again, John laying out the guidelines for what Christ was doing and who Christ is, with a little bit of imagery that we tend to overlook as we go through the scriptures, because we don't take the time to pause and look deeper within the scripture and what's being revealed to us. Another one that we kind of overlook as we go through, and if you actually look at it, it reveals a whole lot more about the nature of Christ and what the church has been doing ever since. And that is to take a look at let's see here, where am I? Chapter 6, verses 10 through 12. And this one here is one that every church at some point, whether they are a liturgical church or if they're non-liturgical, they're going to do this generally at least twice a year, if not more. They repeat this here. Most people, when they look at this, they don't catch the highlight in the things here that come with this piece of scripture, which reads, "And Jesus said, 'Have the people sit down.' There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish." Okay, well, people say, okay, well, what is the imagery there? Now, I want you to take a look at that and remember that as we flip back to the Last Supper. If I can flip back here, because I forgot to mark that in my Bible as we were going here earlier. Let's see. But basically, what this here is a repeat of the Last Supper. Or actually, it's the outline that Christ does with the Last Supper here. Because when he takes the bread at the Last Supper, he takes it, breaks it, gives thanks to God for the bread, and shares it with the disciples. And he does the same with the wine. So here, with the feeding of the 5,000, he's setting out how people are going to be taken care of and how his disciples are going to feed those who come after to look at their teaching and to follow Christ. Christ sets kind of the guideline here so that the disciples get used to the way he goes about things. Whenever there's a gathering with Christ and we take the food, we always give a blessing to the food. Now, what is unique about this is Christ blesses the food before it's eaten. In typical Jewish tradition, the food in the meal is blessed afterwards as people give thanks to God for the bounty that they have just enjoyed. What Christ is doing here is kind of turning things around, and he's taking the food which is brought before him, blesses it, gives it as a thanks to God for the bounty that they're about to enjoy, then takes it and shares it with those around him, which kind of symbolizes what Christ is doing for us. If you actually look through some of the liturgical churches and some of the things for the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, Holy Communion, however you want to call it, one of the lines that is typically said at the very beginning is when the priest holds up the wafer or the piece of bread that represents the host, which is Christ's body, it's generally broken, much like Christ broke the bread and passed out. And the priest will say, "Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us." So Christ is showing himself here is that he is going to be broken, but in that brokenness, he's going to share himself with all of us, and through that, we will feed upon him and his power and have the life and the healing that he has promised and that he has available to us. So this is just another one of those little simple areas that we kind of overlook as we go through things. Another one that is real easy to overlook, and a lot of people don't really catch that, is in chapter 8, verses 57 to 59. And this is one that I kind of like a little bit because people kind of just overlook some of this as they go through here and don't catch the point of what is being said. Now, Jesus has been testifying about himself. He's just gone round and round with the Sanhedrin and the scribes and the Pharisees about the house divided and the children of the devil, and them claiming that, well, he's with the devil, and he said, and he's really just tearing them down with all their arguments, with his knowledge of Scripture and his takes on Scripture. And then one of the members of the Sanhedrin says, "You are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham?" Now, and this is where Jesus replies back, "I tell you the truth, before Abraham was born, I am." Now, the one thing that's the key in here that we all overlook, and it is a very poignant piece of Scripture and imagery, is when the Jews say, "You are not yet 50 years old." That is a key age within the Levitical priesthood. Okay, for the main members of the Sanhedrin and the ruling parties of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the high priest, you had age requirements. Okay, before you could actually serve in the temple, you had to be 35. Before you could be considered for a high priest position or a seat on the Sanhedrin, you had to be at least 50 years old. The Sanhedrin was basically the government, the ruling body within the Jewish faith in the nation of Israel. I mean, they had so much power and influence that even the Romans, the Herodians, and some of the others in the area would defer to their counsel and authority on matters to keep the Jewish people placated and within line with what they wanted. So, for Jesus to say, that he has all this knowledge and that he has seen Abraham and he knows more than the Sanhedrin, when he's not even of age to be considered a priest and a rabbi by their standards, it's throwing up a huge block. What God is saying here through John is that a spiritual age is not necessarily the same as a physical age. And it's a kind of a call to us today, because you can have a child of 12 who is much more spiritually stronger, deeper in their walk, and wiser than, say, someone in their 70s who has just recently come to faith. So the physical age does not necessarily equate a spiritual age and a closeness with God, which is what John is painting here with this picture, and what Jesus is revealing. It says it doesn't matter what is on the outside and the age that you are by man's count. What matters most with me is that you've accepted me, and that you always have a chance. And don't always judge from the outside. Look at the person's heart and what's going on inside their lives, because a lot of times what's going on inside their lives and on the inside spiritually is more profound than what you see on the outside. Another one that I like to look at here that kind of shows a little bit more with what Christ was doing, and some people will question exactly why it went this way, is the story of Lazarus in chapter 11 verse 17. And this one here is kind of very key for a lot of things. And the reason I say this is because of the number that's involved here. And this verse reads, "On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days." And that's the key thing here. Most of us, when we looked at it, will say, okay, he's been dead 4 days, no big deal, and we keep going on. But, as I said, John paints a picture here with this that the average Jew of the time would have immediately picked up on. In Jewish tradition, once the body was dead and it had been put into the grave, the spirit could be restored by prayer to God within the first 3 days. Okay, which is why when Jesus showed up, Mary and Martha lambasted Jesus, saying, had you been here earlier, had you gotten here sooner, Lazarus would be alive. because Jesus deliberately waits for the fourth day to prove again his divinity and his power and his connection with God. Okay, because in Jewish tradition and Jewish faith, by Jesus arriving on the fourth day, they believed that, well, the Spirit had already gone, the Spirit was already with the Lord, and there was no way at all that he could be restored to life. The time had passed. So when Jesus walks out and says, I am the resurrection and the life, okay, he's stating here within this context that, the way he works and the way God works is not by man's rules. Man has set the 72-hour limit, but God can restore anybody, anytime, as long as they have faith and they believe. So when Jesus walks up to the tomb and says, come out, and Lazarus comes out, the image here that's all created with this, he's showing once again his power, his majesty, and his might, and the fact that he and the Father are one, and that he, being Jesus, controls our destiny and our fate and our lives. So, these are just some of the imagery that has been put in to the scriptures by John, and it really just kind of highlights and emphasizes some of the things about the nature of Christ, his love for us, and how he's always here with us, and he's always been looking and trying to guide us to new life, a better life, and a life with him. And he's calling us to go deeper into the Word, deeper into what has been revealed within the Scriptures, so that our knowledge and our faith and our walk with him can grow and be expounded. So I do hope that you will take the time as you read through the Scriptures now to kind of just slow down and pause a little bit and look for the picture that is being painted, and then work to go deeper into that to find out the meaning that God is revealing within this and how that can apply to your lives and what you want to do. So, as we wrap things up tonight, again, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can drop me a line at deaconbarnhill@gmail.com. Deacon Barnhill is all one word. You can post something on my Facebook page at Larry Barnhill, and I will try to answer you. Or you can put it on my ministry page at his footsteps on Facebook. I will try to answer there. If also in the future, if you're listening to one of these broadcasts and you plug into it, there is a chat feature now that has been put up. So if you have questions or concerns about something I'm talking about in the future, you can go ahead and post a message there, and I'll try to talk to you and answer it as we're going through everything here. So I hope you do enjoy this, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. So may the Lord be with you, may he bless you, and may he help you as you go deeper into the Word and the Scriptures and what he has revealed for us. Good night, my friends, and may God bless you and be with you as always. You have been listening to the Larry Barnhill Radio Show, a weekly broadcast from Deacon Barnhill Ministries. We hope that tonight's broadcast has been one that you have greatly enjoyed, and that you have been blessed in the hearing of it. May God be with you, friends, and we look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place.